Ladies and gentlemen, the following podcast is set for one episode. Your host from Columbus, Ohio, is Michael Kirk. Welcome to the Outlaw Mudcast. Hello and welcome to the Outlaw Mudcast, your digital audio dirt sheet for all things Super Show. The big news we're covering on tonight's show is that the first events, the beginnings of the match card for Virtual GenCon have been announced. So, GenCon was supposed to be the last weekend of July, the first weekend of August, which I believe was going to be July 30th through August 2nd. July 30th would have been the Thursday. July 31st would have been Friday. August 1st, Saturday. And August 2nd, Sunday. Even though that will not be taking place, there will be events running on the SRG Universe Twitch page. They will be running events. Let me give you what they announced this week on Talk of the Universe. So, number one, the World Heavyweight Championship will be defended. South Bell will defend her championship against the current number one contender, Chris Pagillo. The Tornado Tag Championship will be defended. This is going to be defended in a triple threat. Press 1P, John Polverino will be defending against two competitors, one of which has already been determined. It was the winner of this week's Press 1P Invitational. I will get to that when we cover this week's events. The Tag Team Championships will be defended. Impact, the team of Press 1 John Polverino and his partner, Google Docs Dan, will take on the winner of the East Coast versus Midwest Tag Team Bracket. That match, the match of the East Coast winner, Brain Bada, Robert the Brain Dunn, and the Italian Mabata, took on Dangerous Alliance, Chris Pate, and Sean Loeb Tuesday night. The winner was the Dangerous Alliance. The Midwest wins. So the Dangerous Alliance will be facing Impact Virtual GenCon weekend. That is with one caveat. If the boss decides to have Impact defend prior to the Virtual GenCon weekend and they lose, it's possible that Dangerous Alliance will take on the new champion. But that's the way that's set up. There's been no news on the Trios Championship. The Triad Championship is still slated to have its first defense, for match to determine who will be the first champion at the Grand Gathering. The Underworld Championship, there will be a match for that. The number one contender will be determined by a 16-man tournament. The 16 people in this tournament are people who currently do not have, or at the time that they were chosen, did not have a title shot in the wings, which eliminates a lot of people. Eliminates, for example, I just talked about Dangerous Alliance. They are eliminated. I just talked about Chris Pagillo. He's eliminated. There are also, for example, certain factions that were not eligible. Impact, for example, because Impact currently holds two of the championships and is the number one contender for a third. They were not eligible for this. As of right now, though, we have 8 people who have been released that will be eligible for this tournament. 8 people for the tournament were picked by the general manager, John Clace. This is the 8 I'm going to give you. There are 4 that will be picked by the SRG boss, Steve Resk, and there are 4 that will be picked by the Underworld champion, Kirk Polka. Here are those 8 men. James Booker, Robert the Brain Dunn, the Cannoli Anthony Perry, the Living Weapon Michael Deans, the Big Guy Gary Schneider, Loudmouth Leo Larynx, Matt Nealon, and Mr. Las Vegas Eddie Fury. We don't know again who the other 8 are at this point. They do have, I believe, until a week from today, so the first Sunday in July, to announce their picks. We do know what the stipulations are going to be for this event. In the first round, the matches will be under one of the following stipulations: tables, Liger's Den, Steel Cage, or Psycho Circus. In the quarterfinals, all the matches will be ladder matches. In the semifinals, all the matches will be tables, ladders, and steel chain matches. So the TLC match, not tables matches, ladders matches, steel chain matches. There'll be tables, ladders, chains. Just to clarify, that'll be a TLC match. The finals, it'll depend on who ends up making the finals. The stipulation of the finals will be determined, from what I understand, on the day. But that's the Underworld. 2 other major events. Saturday, August 1st, there will be a tournament to determine a contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. So just like we had the tournaments the weekend of the virtual Grand Gathering, we're having a tournament in that same fashion to determine a contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. This, of course, will be a contender that's going to be obviously after Chris Pagel and I believe after Dave Marisak as well. The signups for this will go live on supershowthegame.com this Monday. So tomorrow, June 29th, the signups will start. This should be, as far as I know, a tournament with no cap on the number of players. They will take as many people that are going to sign up. I don't know what the deadline is yet. They have not announced what the deadline is. I imagine it'll be quite a while because there's going to be a month between the time signups start and the time this tournament begins. And I don't know when your deck list ought to be submitted, if you have to submit a deck list. But there will be a tournament. The other big news, Virtual GenCon weekend, Friday night, will be the draft for the Faction Wars matches that will happen at Grand Gathering 2 in September. To recap, the Faction Wars, and I do not know if there are still signups available. The signups were available for the original Grand Gathering that was supposed to take place earlier this year. That ended up being rescheduled till September. And I know that there have been some shifts, so you may still be able to sign up if you can get on a team or make a team of 6. If you're going to the Grand Gathering, I'd reach out to the GM. But the way this is supposed to work is this. Your team will draft 6 competitors. The only limit on the draft is this. Your team cannot draft competitors that share the same printed 10 skill. So, for example, if you draft El Super Hombre has a printed skill of 10 for power. You cannot draft Merlin von Berlin, who also has a printed skill of 10 for power. You have to basically draft once per skill. If you draft Snake Pit has a 10 grapple. You cannot draft, same with the Draw Callahan, who also has a 10 skill for grapple. I believe that's the case. So at the end, when you've finished drafting, you should have one competitor with a power of 10, one with a technique of 10, one with an agility of 10, one with a strike of 10, one with a submission of 10, and one with a grapple of 10. And then you will be playing in a variety of matches at the Grand Gathering with your competitors. These could be stipulation matches. These could be multiplayer matches. These could be tag matches. Sky's the limit. We just don't know. But that draft will take place the Friday of Virtual GenCon weekend. It's going to be run just like the draft was last year. There will be, I'm going to assume, 6 rounds because you're drafting 6 competitors. Teams will be given a draft slot, and you will be on the clock. You'll have a certain amount of time to make your pick. I liked the draft last year. I thought it was very exciting. I'm looking forward to it again this year. But that's the big news about what's going on with Virtual GenCon weekend. I'm sure there's going to be more news to come. There may be more events, more activities going on. We know there's going to be new competitors coming out. At Gen Con last year, there was a match, I believe the first of its kind, a 6-man tag, where the 3 members of the 3 kings, King Pink, King Cold, and King Greatness, took on the SRG boss, Sage the Wicked Witch, and the general manager, John Calais, in a 6-man tag, where the tag rules applied. So, if the boss and Sage both roll the same skill, they can tag. If all 3 people on the team roll the same skill, all 3 members can tag and play. You even could have save rolls where 2 people were able to help save one person. They had also a different save mechanic. I don't remember all the details exactly, but you could negate certain type of assist rolls, I believe. Again, this is a match that's only happened once, and if it ever happens again, there could be different rules entirely. But it was a very exciting match. The Three Kings won that match, and as a result, all the Three Kings competitors are going to get a full set of finishes. At that point, they'd only had, I believe, one finish each, and I believe that King Cold and King Greatness won a second finish from a match they played during the original Grand Gathering. But as a result of this match, not only all the Kings getting a full set of finishes, but they're going to be featured in the next faction pack. So there's supposed to be a faction pack scheduled to come out, Gen Con, that is going to feature the Three Kings. As far as I know, that's still taking place. I haven't heard anything to the contrary, but they haven't announced that either. So I'd be curious to see if they put anything out. I may even ask about that. But as far as I know, they're still slated to be, in addition to everything I reported about Virtual GenCon weekend, we'll have a new faction pack Virtual GenCon weekend, the Three Kings faction pack. But that's going to do it. That is really the big news. The only other big news, and it's kind of sad news, but it worked out okay. Steve Resk was not on Talk of the Universe this weekend, and that's because his wife took apparently a bad fall down the stairs while holding onto their brand new baby Victoria Joe. From what all the reports are, they're both fine. I'm glad to hear that they're both okay, and just wish them the best. Hope that everything's fine with them. But yeah, that's really all the news coming out of SRG this week. Before I go ahead and talk about the events this week, I want to talk about two of the new competitors that have come out. These are two competitors that I believe are different versions of the Stricklands. Of course, we'd had two competitors for Shane Strickland and Brittany Strickland before. Shane Strickland's competitor was simply Shane Strickland. Brittany Strickland's competitor was Ember Wolf. Have a bit of a soft spot for Ember Wolf. Two reasons. Number one, I like Johnny Gargano, and Ember Wolf's gimmick is a version of Johnny Gargano's gimmick. Number two, when I played at GeoCon, which was before Plaid Saturday 2, as part of our push to get Gia the 1,000 wins to help break the curse, each player in GeoCon was given a competitor to use. I believe it says a manager or company to the ring by, where basically you could use their gimmick. I received Ember Wolf, and so my Gia with Ember Wolf, we were able to win GeoCon. So I will always be a fan of Ember Wolf because she was in my corner when I won GeoCon. But these two competitors that came out, the Mastermind has Shane Strickland's logo on the competitor card, meaning you can play not just the Mastermind's finishes, but Shane Strickland's finishes. And Ruby Renegade has Ember Wolf's logo on the competitor card, which means you can only play the Ruby Renegade finishes. You can play the Ember Wolf finishes too. So I'm going to go through those two competitors and talk about them. I will start with the Mastermind. Here are the skills, and here's the gimmick. Power 7, Technique 6, Agility 9, Strike 10, Submission 8, Grapple 5. When you bump, your opponent's next turn roll is -2 or -2. I usually just say -2. So it's essentially the same gimmick as Shane Strickland, but just the reverse. Shane Strickland's gimmick is when you bump, your next turn roll is +2. This just reduces your opponent's next turn roll by 2 instead of adding 2 to your own. Looking at the 13 through 15 cards, if we want to play one of the stops based on skills, at number 13, running Lariat makes sense with a strike of 10. Your power 7, your grapple's 5, so nothing really makes sense at the 14. At 15, with a submission of 8, you could run bow and arrow. It's kind of iffy. If you don't want to run that, cross-arm chicken wing, the submission version is good there. Also, the card that will stop any finished strike that cannot be stopped is good there. Let's look at the finishes. Start with the finish strike, Broken Butterfly, number 28. +1 to power, +2 to technique. Add 1 card from your discard pile to your hand. If you have no other cards in your hand, this card is also a lead. +1 to power increases your power to an 8. +2 to technique increases your technique to an 8. So you'll have a 5, 3 8s, a 9, and a 10. At crowd meter 0, you have a 5 and 6 chance of rolling 8 or better. That's really good. The Finish Grapple, number 29, a trip to the upside down. It is a spotlight card. +1 to power, +3 to grapple. When this card is in your discard pile, it copies the text of your opponent's spotlight cards in their discard pile and then blanks them. And it doesn't say spotlight card, it just has the spotlight symbol. I'm assuming that stands for spotlight cards. Skill-wise, +1 to power bumps your power from a 7 to an 8. +3 to grapple bumps it from a 5 to an 8. So you have a 6, 3 8s, a 9, and a 10. Pretty much the same as the other card, except for instead of your lowest skill being a 5, your lowest skill is a 6. Copying the text of your opponent's spotlight cards and blanking them can be very good. If your opponent has a spotlight card like, say, Scarlet Graves in the discard pile that blanks the opponent's gimmick, you could, if you had this in your discard pile, you could take that effect, blank Scarlet Graves gimmick. This is also nice where if your opponent had a card where, say, they roll their strike, they get add back to the hand, you can copy that. And so when you roll your strike, you can add this back to your hand. Very nice effect on the trip to the upside down. The Finish Submission, number 30, T-Virus. +1 to power, +1 to technique, +2 to grapple. If you bumped on the last turn roll, double these bonuses. +1 to power makes your power go from a 7 to an 8. +1 to technique makes your technique go from a 6 to a 7. And +2 to grapple makes your grapple go from a 5 to a 7. So you would have 2 7s, 2 8s, a 9, and a 10. That's assuming you did not bump. If you did bump, it would bump your grapple to a 9, your technique to an 8, and your power to a 9. So you would have 2 8s, 3 9s, and a 10. That is really, really good. Because if you bump, your opponent's next turn roll is going to be at -2. Gives you a better chance of winning the turn roll to be able to throw this T-Virus and then get those nice bonuses. So those are the 3 finish cards for the Mastermind. Let's look at the 3 Shane Strickland cards you can play with this. Start with the Finish Strike number 28. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. Bomaye. It's Bomaye. This is all just skill boosts. +2 to power, +3 to technique, +1 to agility. This bumps your power from a 7 to a 9, your technique from a 6 to a 9, and your agility from a 9 to a 10. So you'll have an 8, a 5, 3 9s, and a 10. So 2 out of 3 chance of rolling 9 or better. That's really good. The big difference is going to be the text. The Broken Butterfly allows you to add a card from your discard pile to your hand and becomes a lead if you have no other cards in your hand. The other one just gives you really high skills. I think it's just going to depend on your own personal taste. They're both good. Broken Butterfly, I think, is a little bit better late game because if you have no other cards in your hand and if for some reason you're not going to try to win by countout or you can't win by countout, you can just bury the Broken Butterfly, draw it, play it immediately. It becomes one that's very spammable, one that you can just bury play over and over and just kind of push it through. So I think both of these are good. It's just going to depend on your personal taste. The Finish Grapple, Kill Shot, number 29, +2 to power, +1 to grapple. If you bumped on the previous turn roll, this card is also a follow-up. +2 to power bumps your power from a 7 to a 9. +1 on grapple bumps it from a 5 to a 6. So you have 2 6s, an 8, 2 9s, and a 10. 50% chance of rolling 9 or better is not bad. The bonuses aren't quite as good. I think I like a trip to the upside down better because of how great that spotlight effect is. With Kill Shot, It does give the ability, because it becomes a follow-up when you bump on the previous turn roll. Let's say the game starts. I've got something like Call to the Crowd and Kill Shot in my hand. We bump on the first turn roll. On the next turn roll, my opponent is -2 to the roll. I win that. I play Call to the Crowd. I play Kill Shot. If they can't stop either one of those, we've got a one-turn finish. Always a nice effect, but I think the copying the spotlights of your opponents and blanking them is so good. I would still, I think, play a Trip to the Upside Down better. The last finish from Shane Strickland that you can play with the Mastermind, the finish submission number 30, Fade to Black. If your finish roll is 7 or less, it is +2. Your opponent buries one card in their hand. Same text as Sharpshooter, but it's going to give you the option to bury. So let's see, if we rolled, assuming no other bonuses to finish roll outside of the crowd meter, it's going to bump my grapple to a 7, my technique to an 8, and my power to a 9. So I'd have 7, 8, 9, 8, 9, 10. If I did the T-Virus would go 5 to a 7, 7 to an 8, and 6 to a 7. So not quite as good normally. It's the same at the 5, but it's not as good with the 6 and a 7. Instead of the 7 going to a 9 and the 6 going to an 8. In this case, the 7 goes to an 8 and the 6 goes to a 7. But you do have the ability to double those when you bump. So I would say normally Fade to Black is better because you're guaranteed the +2 no matter what happens, and you make your opponent bury. But if you're able to get the bump to go off and get the double to those bonuses, T-Virus is better in that situation. So it's really just going to depend on how you want to play. They're both good. Fade to Black is more of a sure thing, whereas T-Virus is conditional on whether or not you bumped before you get to play it. But that is the Mastermind. Now let's go ahead and take a look at Ruby Renegade. Here are the skills, and here's the gimmick. Power 8, Technique 10, Agility 9, Strike 6, Submission 7, Grapple 5. Once on your turn, when you hit a card with Chicken Wing or Elbow in the name, shuffle one card into your deck and draw one card. We talk about the gimmick first. So there are quite a number of cards with Elbow in the name: Flying Elbow Drop, Elbow Strikes. Death by Elbow is a very well-known generic finish. Also JT Dunn's finish. Chicken Wing, there aren't so many. There's 3 cards I know of. Chicken Wing, which is a stop. It's a stop any finish strike. Your next turn roll is +1 or +2 if you have the new version. The other 2 cards with Chicken Wing are Chicken Wing Wonderplex, which I believe is a follow-up grapple number 17, and then Cross-Arm Chicken Wing. Here is the one question. I don't believe this is going to work with Cross-Arm Chicken Wing. And I'll tell you why. Chicken Wing on Ruby Renegade has a space between the N and the W. Chicken Wing on card number 15, Cross-Arm Chicken Wing, doesn't have a space. So it would not trigger her gimmick if you want to be strict about it. So that's kind of a blow to Ruby Renegade, because Ruby Renegade has a 10 technique. She could run the technique version of Cross-Arm Chicken Wing, but it wouldn't trigger gimmick from what I'm reading, because there is no space between the N and the W on the Cross-Arm Chicken Wing card. Maybe they'll change it, put out a version with the space. Maybe they'll say this is okay with that. But as of right now, the way it's written wouldn't work. Talking about the 13 through 15 cards, Technique 10, you're looking at a card like Single Leg Crab. Agility 9, a card like Kick in the Corner. Power 8, you could run Falling Power Slam. I'm always iffy on that 8 skill. But you could run a stop at 13, 14, and 15 with Ruby Renegade. Let's look at her finishes. And again, Ruby Renegade has the Emberwolf logo, so we'll not just look at the Ruby Renegade finishes. We'll also look at the Emberwolf finishes and see how they work. Start with the finish strike. Number 28, Mystic Falls. +1 to power, +2 to strike. If you have a card with elbow in the name, this card can only be stopped by a follow-up. So go through the skills first. +1 to power takes your power from an 8 to a 9. +2 to strike takes your strike from a 6 to an 8. So you'd have a 5, a 7, an 8, 2 9s, and a 10. 50% chance of rolling a 9 or better on a finish roll at crowd meter 0. That's pretty good. Because it doesn't say this card's unstoppable, you cannot do something like play the card that can stop an unstoppable strike and then play the finish that gives you the victory. You couldn't, for example, play, I believe it's a half crab, and then go ahead and play throws in the towel and win the game. Because this doesn't say it's unstoppable, or rather cannot be stopped. It says it can only be stopped by follow-ups. So in this case, Mystic's Falls can be stopped by a card like Single Leg Crab or Bow and Arrow. And with a technique of 10, unless somehow your opponent is able to bump their technique over 10, they can't stop you with the Single Leg Crab. So they either have to be running Bow and Arrow or a Leg Lock. So that makes this very strong if you have a card with elbow in the name and play. Now, most of the elbow cards that I can think of are strikes. So if you have another strike and play with elbow in the name, you would be eligible to stop this with a leg lock. But this does mean that a card like Double Armbar can't stop this. They have to use either a leg lock or a card in the 15 slot. So that's very good to be able to eliminate one stop from being able to be used on this card. Makes it much harder. It makes it easier to burn through their stops too. Because once you've got an elbow in play, instead of having up to 3 options to stop this card, they only have up to 2. Alright, let's look at number 29, the Finish Grapple. That's a Spotlight card. Rain Before the Rainbow. +1 to Agility, +3 to Grapple. When this card is in your discard pile, and you draw for your gimmick, you may discard 1 card to draw an additional card. Again, reiterate the gimmick. When she hits a card with chicken wing or elbow in the name, she can shuffle a card into her deck and draw the card. This says, okay, she hits that. She shuffles in the deck. She draws a card. She can discard a card and draw an additional card. So this is just a nice way to help her thin out her deck, the Ruby Renegade. And as John Programmer likes to say, thinning is winning. So nice little bit of tech to help thin out the deck here. The skills, +1 to Agility will increase the Agility from a 9 to a 10. +3 will increase the Grapple from a 5 to an 8. So you'd have a 6, 7, 2 8s, and 2 10s. So 1 in 3 chance of rolling 10 or better. That's pretty good. And then the Finish Submission, number 30. My Brutality. +1 to Power. +1 to Submission. +2 to Grapple. If you have a card with elbow and a card with chicken wing in play, double these bonuses. So, if you don't have those 2 cards in play, it's going to be +1 to Power, raising your power from an 8 to a 9. +1 to Submission, raising your submission from a 7 to an 8. And +2 to Grapple, raising your grapple from a 5 to a 7. So you'll have a 6, a 7, an 8, 2 9s, and a 10. So 50% chance of rolling 9 or better is good. If you are able to double the bonuses because you have an elbow and a chicken wing in play, and you can actually do this with stops. You could stop a finish strike with the chicken wing. You could stop a finish grapple with the elbow strikes, and then play the finish off those 2 stops because that would qualify. They won't trigger your gimmick because you're not hitting them on your turn, but it will count toward the brutality. So if you double those, it'll give you a +2 to Power, so it'll increase the power from an 8 to a 10. +2 to Submission will increase the submission from a 7 to a 9. And +4 to Grapple will increase the grapple from a 5 to a 9. So it'll give you a 6, 2 9s, actually 3 9s, and 2 10s. So 5 out of 6 chance of hitting a 9 or better on the finish roll, that's really good. So those are the finishes for Ruby Renegade. Now, let's talk about how the Ember Wolf finishes work with Ruby Renegade. Start with the finish strike, number 28, Dreamcatcher. +1 to strike. When you have a card with Chicken Wing in the name and play, your opponent gets 2 breakout rolls this turn. So that's going to increase the strike from a 6 to a 7. And if you happen to have the Chicken Wing in play, the opponent gets 2 breakout rolls instead of 3. This is nice if you're playing against somebody like El Super Hombre, because El Super Hombre gets the +2 on their 3rd breakout roll. You could take that away from them with this card, so they would not get that +2. Anyone else who gets a bonus to their last finish roll, that would work well against them. I kind of like the Mystic Falls a little bit better. It's better skill boosts, and there are a lot more options to get cards with Elbow in the name and play than there are to get cards with Chicken Wing. Like I said, there's only 2 cards that have Chicken Wing, and I'm assuming there is a space between Chicken and Wing in the way this is written. It's kind of hard to tell because on the actual physical card Dreamcatcher, the N is the end of one line and the W is the beginning of another. I'm assuming there's a space because if this was supposed to be one word that got cut off, normally you might have a hyphen or a dash after the end to indicate that is the same word just stringing over to the next line. So I'm assuming there's a space there. So a card like Cross-Arm Chicken Wing wouldn't work with this. It's going to be up to you, but I kind of like Mystic Falls over Dreamcatcher. Finish Grapple, Stardust Fall. +4 to power. Shuffle 6 cards from your discard pile into your deck and draw 2 cards. +4 to power is going to increase Ruby Renegade's power from 8 to a 12. Shuffle 6 cards from your deck in your discard pile and draw 2 cards. It's nice recursion here, and with that +4 to power, it gives you the ability to roll a 12 at crowd meter 0, which is a nice effect to have in something like a main event match when using the main event stipulation. I still think I'd go with Rain Before the Rainbow. I think that is a better finish. I think the ability for what it does in the discard pile is better than Stardust Fall. But it's going to be up to you. I'm leaning toward Rain Before the Rainbow. And the finish submission, number 30, Rebel Heart. +1 to submission. +2 to grapple. Flip 2 cards. Then add 1 strike from your discard pile to your hand. +1 to submission increases the submission from a 7 to an 8. +2 to grapple increases the grapple from a 5 to a 7. So the boosts are the same on both cards, except My Brutality has a +1 to power, and this has no boost to power. And you also have the ability to double on My Brutality. There is additional text on Rebel Heart. Rebel Heart says, flip 2 cards, then add 1 strike from your discard pile to your hand. So you've got recursion on the Rebel Heart with the ability to add a strike from your discard pile to your hand. That is nice. You could, for example, pick up your strike finish again. I kind of like My Brutality better, especially if you're going to build the deck to have a lot of elbows and chicken wings in play. It is a bit harder right now because, like I said, there are limits on chicken wings. There's only 2 cards right now that fit that, either the Stop Chicken Wing or Chicken Wing Wonderplex. As far as I know, there are no other chicken wings, especially because there has to be a space between the N and the W. So maybe you want to go with the Rebel Heart. You're giving up a +1 to power and the ability to double the bonuses, but you're getting more of a consistency with Rebel Heart. You're getting that guaranteed recursion, whereas the bonuses aren't guaranteed on My Brutality. It's going to be very situational. But those are the finishes that you can run. I will talk about this too because of her gimmick with the elbow. You could think about with her running Death by Elbow. Let's take a look at Death by Elbow. Death by Elbow is a finish strike, number 28. It is a generic finish. And here is what it says. Your skills are +1 for each other card you have in play with elbow in the name. When your opponent has 0 cards in play, this card cannot be stopped. Now, you would have to be a bit conditional with this because this would open you up to getting hit by the half crab and throwing the towel or calls for the bell combo. If your opponent has 0 cards in play, it's going to depend on how many. You're all going to have a lot of elbow cards out there too, because if you don't have any elbow cards in play, it gives you no bonuses. Whereas Mystic Falls, you're going to at least get +1 to power, +2 to strike. If you have 1 elbow in play, though, you're getting +1 to everything. So it's going to just be up to you. But it's an option to think of, especially because when you hit Death by Elbow as your finish, it will trigger your gimmick. You will be able to shuffle a card in your deck and draw a card. So that's Ruby Renegade. I think it's an interesting gimmick. It does hurt a little bit because Chicken Wing is a stop and Elbow Strikes is a stop. So when you hit those 2 cards as stops, and those are very commonly used stops in the game, you're not going to be able to trigger your gimmick. So you're kind of, again, limited on Chicken Wing unless you're going to hit that finish stop on your turn. The only card you have with Chicken Wing you can hit on your turn is Chicken Wing Wonderplex. But yeah, I like that. And that's what I think about the Mastermind and Ruby Renegade. Let's go ahead and talk about the events this week. So we start off Thursday. Press 1P Invitational is back. For how long? I don't know. Probably until the SRG Universe New York Playgroup finds a new store home on Thursdays. For right now, it's back. This week, it was a Tornado Tag tournament. 32 players using printed Tornado Tag cards. The winner is going to be put in the triple threat match that was announced on Talking Universe, where that winner and another person will challenge John Polverino for the Tornado Tag Championship. The finals came down to Chris Pate using the Dangerous Alliance and Hold the Line Harry using the Immortal Brick Brothers. I believe he was using the Immortal Warrior version of that. Crowd Meter 3. Both players have leads and flops in play. Hold the Line Harry wins the turn roll. Rolling agility, so his gimmick triggers. He's able to add his strike finish to his hand. Play his strike finish, it goes through. And he rolls, I believe, a 23. So Hold the Line Harry will be in the triple threat match for the Tornado Tag Championship. Congratulations to him. Friday night, we go on to the Cannolis event, Be Our Special Guest. This is an event where every match has a special guest referee. The finals of this tournament come down to John Polverino, Press 1P using the Cheetah, and Chris Pate using Gia de los Muertos. The finals match is a main event match with Anthony Gangone as the special guest referee. And the winner at Crowd Meter 3 is John Polverino. Congratulations to him. Saturday, we had a Create a Competitor tournament hosted by The Compound, known as The Revolution. The finals came down to the Cannoli, Anthony Perry, using D2, taking on Mr. Las Vegas, Eddie Fury, using Snake Pit. And Cannoli ends up winning this one. This has been quite a few wins with D2. D2 has won quite a number of these creative competitor competitions. So D2 proving to be a very strong competitor in the game. Sunday morning, we see the finals of the Junior Heavyweight Championship #1 Contenders Tournament. It's a triple threat final. Vinny Trebbing, using Numero Uno, takes on Sophia the Fallen Angel, using Backpack Man, and Little G, the son of Gary Schneider, using the Rising Sun. And Lil G takes it. So it's going to be all Schneider matchup when Little G takes on his big sister, J Flash, for the Junior Heavyweight Championship. That's going to be a very interesting match to see. And Sunday night, Chris Pagillo, the Italian Bombata, hosts a Run the Stips tournament where every match features a different stipulation. The finals are Ito Ortiz using Everybody, taking on Chris Pate using X-Royce in a Psycho Circus match. And at Crowd Meter 1, Chris Pate using X-Royce hits the hardcore running knee and wins the tournament. So this has been quite a week for Chris Pate. Of the 4 tournaments that were open to everybody, he made the finals of 3 of them. The Press 1P Invitational, the BR Special Guest Tournament, and the Run the Stips Tournament. And won the Run the Stips Tournament. And he was also in a featured match as part of Dangerous Alliance taking on Brain Bada and won that too. So he's just had an incredible week. Just continues to sort of make his mark as a top player. But congratulations to him. Congratulations to all the players for getting far in these tournaments and for winning. I am hoping that whoever the cannoli Anthony Perry makes, I believe he said he's going to be making his friend Silent J. I'm looking forward to seeing what he comes up with. As far as upcoming tournaments, I'm assuming there's still going to be a Thursday tournament, whether that's another Press 1 Invitational, whether that's a Boss Takeover. It's just going to depend. Dojos continue to run on Tuesday nights. There's been a lot of talk about the Dojo Mafia taking over the dojo. I wonder if that will continue this week. We'll see. I believe the next stage of the Cheetahs Consolation Cup tournament is wrapping up. That's a tournament the Cheetah was running for people who did not make the top cut of the Cheetahs Anti-Coronavirus Cup, which was a free Create a Competitor tournament. This is a free tournament as well. The winner will either get a Champion of Kickstarter card, or if they already own one, they will pay the prize forward to a player who doesn't. At some point, he's mentioned he's going to run a second Create a Competitor competition. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I'm looking forward to that. TJ Marconi also hinted that he is looking at possibly running a Create a Competitor tournament that it will be a tag team, an actual multiplayer tag team where you and a partner will play somebody else and their partner. There isn't really any more information about that outside of his post. The Online League Season 5 has started, so there are no more sign-ups, but that play is going on. As far as I know, the Hardcore Championship is still out there, as well as the Hardcore Tag Team. I haven't seen a lot of activity on that, but apparently those are still out there, and there are still competitors available. So if you want to try to get your hands on the championship, throw it out there. See if you can get your shot. I mean, new competitors are coming out. I imagine there'll be even more competitors coming out in the next few weeks because Gen Con is coming soon. I can tell you mine Create a Competitor. I've been told that the art will be started on relatively soon. And I was in the last wave, the wave that wasn't even supposed to come out until 2021. And it's quite possible that you could see my competitor come out by the Grand Gathering, which would be very nice. And then just people are always looking for pickup games. I see postings for Zoom rooms opening up all the time. And local play groups are starting to open back up again. Recess Games is running tomorrow night. That's the Cleveland guys. BCW is running Saturdays. We ran yesterday. I wasn't there because I was in the Revolution tournament. I've seen CCW. I've seen FCW. New York would be running in person if not for what happened, what I talked about last show. And just things like that are starting to come back to normal. Compound, I think, has still been running live. I think they've been running live the whole time. But that's going to do it for our show this week. One last note. I wanted to double check this to make sure I was right when I was telling you there are no other cards besides Chicken Wing and Chicken Wing Wonderplex that have Chicken Wing in the name. While there are a few finishers for other competitors that have it, I believe Marty Skrull has Snap Chicken Wing. But there is one card. It is Atomic Chicken Wing. It is a finish conditionally. It's a lead submission, number 9, skill card must have an 8 or greater in submission to run it. This is the card that says if you have the card Hyper Forearm, Kicker, Hold, Choke, and Play, this card's also a finish. The thing is, Ruby Renegade does not have a high enough submission skill to run Atomic Chicken Wing. She only has a 7, so unless she boosts it to an 8, she can't play Atomic Chicken Wing other than just having a deck. When I say she can't play Atomic Chicken Wing, if you have a skill card in your deck and your skill isn't high enough to run it, you can't do what it says. You have to treat the card as if it has blank text. So she could play the Atomic Chicken Wing, and it would do nothing but trigger her gimmick. But that doesn't really make sense to take out a card to play a card that's guaranteed blank. But yeah, that is an update to Ruby Renegade. I wanted to point that out that yes, there is another Chicken Wing card, but it doesn't make sense for her to run that. And that's going to do it for our show. Thank you to all of you for listening, and good day.